Inkscape is like the popular Photoshop. Inkscape is completely free to download and absolutely free to use. Get the link to the download page from my description below. You see the link to land here. Then you go to download, you go to current version. Then you see Inkscape works on Linux, Windows, and Mac depending on the operating system of your computer. Now this is the app. You see the top, the bottom, the left, the right, everywhere. You see tools everywhere here. You may want to learn how to use all these tools. Please check the description below. You see my video on Inkscape tools tutorials. Then you learn how to use all the tools here in Inkscape. Now the first thing I want to do now is to reset my page size according to the project I'm working on. To change the page size, come to this button here. Then document property. Or you go to file up here, document property. Whichever one you use, this is where you land. For me, I always want to work by inches, so go to the general setting and place it on the unit you want. I want inches there. Then under the customize settings as well, I also have to set it to inches. Okay, now my inches should be 16 inches by 20 inches. Good. And the next thing I want to do is to change the orientation. I can make it to be landscape. You see the change? How I make it portrait. Now I want the background to be clear so I can see what I'm doing clearly. So I give it a checkerboard background to keep the background transparent while I work. Now you can use the plus button to zoom in and minus button to zoom out. I pick my text tool. Then I type L-O-V-E. It looks tiny. Just use the selector tool to pick it. And check this padlock at the top here. If the padlock at the top there is opened and you try to drag from the corner edge, you may lose the dimensions of what you're creating and get it distorted. But if you have the padlock locked up, then you pick from the corner edge, then you maintain the dimensions of the shape or whatever object you're working on. So that is fine. Now I may have to duplicate this. You right click and you go to duplicate, or you use your Ctrl D or Command D to do that. Inkscape does it perfectly that you may not notice it's duplicated already. Just drag out, then you see the copy you have created. I right click and I go to text and font. So I can edit this. To change the font, I select the font I want. I think this is fine. Click apply. I don't need this for now. Now you can change the color here. You can change the color at the bottom there. Choose any color of your choice. Or you may want to give it an outline, that is to give a stroke around the letters. So hold your shift key, shift, and select the color you want. Here I pick black with my shift and you see the effect there. You can change the color of the outline or the stroke as well. I right click and go to fill and stroke to have these options here. Then I go to stroke style. Then I can increase the thickness of the stroke. Use the plus button, the minus button. You can also work on the lines around it, different styles there. So as it is now, any change we make now applies to the 4 letters at once. So we need to make each letter to become a vector. So we can individually edit each letter. So we go to path, object to path. Then use the node selector to pick each letter. You can see. So now I can work on each letter individually now. Then I use my selector tool to select each letter. I can pick on each letter now and make adjustment like rotating. I can rotate. I can change the color of each. So giving it different colors now for each letter. I can adjust the position as well. Just play around it since they are individual. I drag over all to select all the letters, then I hold my Command or Control key to select from the corner edge so I can maintain the dimensions of what I've created. Now let's use the copy that we have to produce more letters. IS, I select, then I right click to duplicate, or you use Ctrl D or Command D to duplicate as well. It's done so perfectly, so you need to drag out to see the copy you just made. Now you see the space between the I and S. That space is so much, so come to this point here at the top here and you adjust the closeness there to close up the letters IS. And I think we don't need this because we have a better one now. So I use my Ctrl D or Command D to duplicate, drag out the copy, then I use this to produce more letters. Beautiful. Right click, text and font. Then I have more options to change the font style there. Apply. While you still have it selected, you go up here to adjust the spacing between the letters. You can close up the spacing of the letters to become closer to each other, or you can increase the space as well. Here I'm using the plus button now to increase the space between the letters. Beautiful. I can use the minus button to reduce the closeness as well. Just play around this and see the way it works for you. I use the selector tool to select it. Then I delete that because we need this now to produce our IS. Duplicate. Drag it there. IS. Love is Beautiful is almost ready. So this is the first one. We are still going to do the second editing. So before we do the second editing, let's quickly save this first one before we continue editing. To save it as a PNG, you come to this button here where we have the arrow going out of the page to have these options. Then we're working on what we selected alone, or we try to go by everything we have on the entire page. It should be on 300 dpi, then we export to save it as a PNG. And in case you want to continue to edit for a cut file like laser cut, plasma cut, or Cricut, then you need to do more of the editing, and all these overlapping of letters, you see the O overlapping the L and the V and E as well. Then we need to make a blend of each. So we select the first one using the selector tool and hold your shift to select the second one to have the two of them together. And go to Path and Union. Now you see the point where they overlapped is now joined together. So the two now is now one object. You can see that point there is now joined. So hold your shift and select the next one to work on the overlapping there. Go to Path, Union, and you see it's now a blend together. Hold your shift and select the next one, Path, Union. Now for a good visual relief so you can see the effect, let's change the color to a lighter one. Let me show you how it will look like if you want to place this for cutting. You go to View, Display Mode, Outline. Now you see that. So that's how everything will become one object joined together as a cut. View, Display Mode, no more. Now let's work on the I and S. You can see there's a space between the I and the S. Select it to close that gap because all the letters need to touch one another. So we need to close that space there. I use the minus button here to close the I and S. You can see the change. I think that is fine. Okay, so I drag it to have a touch on the first one we did. Then I select this as well and do the same thing to close the letters. I use the minus button there. I'm trying to close up. So this is another way to do it. Or you can just make it to become a vector by going to path, then object to path, then you select individual layers. Path, object to path. We don't need this, please. So I pick one layer now. By the time you change it to path, through a path and object to path, then you can pick each layer and drag as you want. I use the arrow key on my keyboard now to make adjustments of closing up the spaces there. I hold my shift and pick the next. I think that is fine. I hold my shift, I pick the next. That's still close, that's still okay. I hold my shift, I pick the next. I think the closeness is still okay, but for the U, there's a space between the U and A. There's a space here, so I use my arrow key on the keyboard now to close, 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 close. That is fine. Now I hold my shift, I pick the next, then I drag. The A should touch the E. Okay, that is fine. I think the B and E is okay. Now I drag all to select all, then I hold my Control or Command to drag there, so I maintain the dimensions. Then I take it so close to have a touch on the one we've done before, so that all of them will become one object at the end of the day. View, display mode, outline. Now you can see the overlapping in the beautiful, the B, the E, A, U, T, I, F, U, all of them are overlapping each other. So I pick the selector tool, I select one, I hold my shift, select the second, go to path, union. So now that's a blend. It's now one object there. I hold my shift, I pick the next, path, union. I hold my shift, pick the next, path, union. Shift, next, path, union. So that's how you do it. You can't do all of them at once. It can only pick two objects for union. So you need to be doing it. So use your shift to be picking the next. With your shift, you select the next and you keep making them to be union. As it is now, the beautiful, the is, and the love are still three different objects, and we need all of them to become one. So we select is, that is the is, I hold my shift and I pick the next, which is love, go to path and union. And if you try this not working, just triple click to get the node selector, or you pick the node selector directly and you go to path and you make it union there. Now I need a selector tool to pick this and try to join it to that. Place it in the right way so that you will have good design at the end of the day. I hold my shift key and I select the first and the second object, go to path and union. If it doesn't work, just triple click to get the node selector, or you pick the node selector from the left tool and you pick the two objects, path and union. You can see it's now blended together. I'm gonna zoom in for you to see now. Now you see this point here. We need to clear this point. We need to tidy up this point so we don't have issues when we are making our cut. So what I do is I zoom in properly so I can edit that part. So I select that part out and I click delete. So now we can have a good cut at the end of the day now. So everything now is now one object, so we're going to have a nice cut as a cut file. Display mode and normal. For visual relief, let's reduce the thickness of the stroke there. So we right click and look for stroke and fill. If you don't have it, just come to this bottom here and click this color here for stroke and fill. Stroke style, and I use the minus button here to reduce the thickness of the stroke there. This is just for visual relief. It doesn't affect anything you're doing in your cut. So everything is now one object. You can select the color, and to save it as a cut file, you can just go to save as, and you save it as SVG or DXF. For now, let's save it as PNG. Click on this button with the arrow out of the page and make sure it's on 300 dpi and export. Now let's see the two files that we did. This is the first one here, and this is the one for cut. As always, thank you for watching.